Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Queensland. Good morning to all of our Facebook Live followers. And from the outset, can I thank all of our emergency services and SES crews who are currently in the Wide Bay region, going to extraordinary efforts to help people who are either in distress or trapped in rising floodwaters at the moment. But what I can say is that we do have a severe weather event at the moment. I think everyone would know that we had ex-tropical cyclone Seth off our coast. It crossed over and it has just been sitting around this Wide Bay region. It hasn't moved. It's producing storms and excessive rainfall like what we saw during Tropical Cyclone Oswald. So we do have locally intense rainfall, which may lead to flash flooding. We have the areas are between Bundaberg and Kilcoy, including, of course, Gympie. We expect this rainfall to be there over the next few hours as well. But we do also have a major flood warning that has now been issued for Maryborough. We expect it to reach around 9 metres in the morning, tomorrow morning. So we are in contact at the moment with the mayors. They were just on our phone hookup. We're speaking to them as well. Now, the people of Maryborough have been through this before. We are not expecting it at this stage to peak as high as it did previously when it hit over 10 metres, but there will be some impacts on Maryborough. So we do want to make sure that the residents are well prepared. So please today listen to the alerts that are going out across the region and please be prepared. So across the state there were 76 call-outs from SES, and in that Bundaberg to Kilcoy region there were 31 SES call-outs. There are still 18 that are open needing air support, and as you can appreciate the weather is very difficult at the moment, and we do thank all of those air support teams that are out there. There are 5 air assets in the region, and like I said, people have been deploying people as quickly as possible out to this region to help people. They have just, I'm told, have just rescued 4 people that have been taken to Bundaberg Hospital. I'll get the State Disaster Coordinator to talk about that. I'm advised the Bruce Highway is back open, but we do have a lot of roads that are out at the moment. So I'll hand over to the Bureau to give you an update, but just to give you an indication of some of the weather that we were experiencing, there was 649 millimetres at Mount Canagan overnight, 506 millimetres at Glenwood, 342 millimetres at Kilkeven. This is a lot of rainfall in such a short period of time. I know that the local disaster management groups issued alerts over the course of the night, and with this severe weather event happening, I would urge people to be listening, have their radios on, listen to TVs, broadcasts, social media, and please do not venture out onto the roads if it is unsafe to do so. And if it's flooded, please forget it. And we are tragically reporting that there has been one person that is now deceased who was trapped in floodwaters. And we are hopeful that, we are praying that the others are safe, but we'll be finding out further updates during the course of the day. So I'll hand over to the Bureau and then the State Disaster Coordinator. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Premier. Good morning. So overnight we've seen a really intense rainfall situation unfold. As mentioned, it's the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Seth, and it's produced thunderstorms that have sat stationary or very slow moving overnight. So usually when we see storm activity, it dissipates or it moves on, but overnight in this area we haven't seen that, and it's produced a lot of rainfall in a very small area that has remained overnight, just continuously producing that rainfall. So we've seen a lot of impacts and quite a bit of flooding from that rainfall. So it was very localised north of Gympie, between Gympie and Tyro. Of note, Glenwood and Mount Canagan, they saw 600 plus millimetres in 12 hours, so a really extraordinary amount of rainfall in a short period of time. So what that means is that we are looking at the impacts of flooding today. So we have a severe weather warning currently issued for heavy rainfall that could lead to flash flooding. So we're expecting to see more rainfall in the coming hours, and we could not see an easing potentially until later today. So we could see for the next 3 to 6 hours more rainfall falling. So the ground's going to respond very quickly to any more rainfall, and that leads to the potential of flash flooding, which can be life-threatening and very dangerous. As well as that severe weather warning for flash flooding, we also have riverine flooding. So we've got some warnings out. I'll start with the Burnett River. We've got moderate flood levels at Walla, and we do not have any flooding above minor for Bundaberg. However, it's important to note that that area still has seen 200 millimetres plus of rainfall. So while we're not seeing the major rivers rising, we are starting to see creeks responding to that rainfall. So we're still seeing impacts despite not seeing riverine flooding in Bundaberg. Also for the Byram River and for the town of Howard, we have minor flooding expected as well. And then the main focus today is really the Mary River and the townships along that catchment. So for Gympie, we have moderate flooding likely to peak during this afternoon. So Gympie didn't see that really intense rainfall. It's actually upstream from that intense rainfall. So we're looking at moderate flooding, not major flooding. But then downstream, we're starting to really see the impact. So in Tyro, we are now at above major levels, and that is rising fast in that town. And then further downstream is Maryborough. So depending on what happens at Tyro today with those peaks in rainfall and what happens with the rainfall itself, when we do start to see that easing trend, we will know exactly what we're looking at in Maryborough. However, early indications have moderate flooding. We're likely to exceed moderate levels early Sunday morning, and then potentially exceeding major levels as well tomorrow morning, later in the morning. So that's the wrap up of the flood warnings. I'll pass on to...
Thank you, Premier. As you've heard, we're currently in response, so this situation remains very live and evolving for us as we go forward. We've seen a large number of people already trapped and isolated in fast rising waters, and there have been a significant number of rescues that have already been undertaken and are currently underway. And I'll get Assistant Commissioner Steve Smith from Queensland Fire and Emergency Services to update you on that shortly. As the Premier said, we have already seen one death at Gunalda, where a person was swept away in water in their vehicle. We have been unable to retrieve that person at the moment because of the hazardous nature of that retrieval. There are 5 air assets currently operating in the area. It is a difficult operating environment. They are not able to necessarily access where they need to, given the current conditions, but we are working through that. But happily, from Waluga, as the Premier alluded to, we've rescued 4 persons this morning, and they are all well and have been taken to Bundaberg. We're currently monitoring all the dams in the area. We're not seeing any issues at this stage, but we'll continue to monitor that. There has been a large number of road closures. The Bruce Highway was closed. It is now open. There has been significant damage to some of the roads. Before anyone travels, if they absolutely have to, that's the first thing, don't go out in that area unless you absolutely have to. It is quite hazardous, but please check through the Queensland Government Department of Transport and Main Roads websites for road closures. And also, as the Premier said, if it's flooded, forget it. This is a very, very hazardous situation. The Bruce Highway is open at the moment, but just bear in mind that that could close again. We are expecting major flood levels, as you've heard already in Tyro area, but tomorrow in Maryborough. Emergency alerts are already being used, so for people in those areas, please stay connected. Please make sure you do have your phones on because the information will be pushed to those areas that are going to be impacted by that. We are well in preparation for that, so the local disaster management groups and the district disaster management groups are all activated and operating in those areas. The mayors are engaged. Our district disaster coordinators are all on duty and doing their jobs with their teams. We have search and rescue capabilities in the area. We have rescue capabilities pre-deployed to the area. We have sufficient resources there, but it is a difficult operating environment, and we are finding it hard to access some areas at this stage. I can tell you that in terms of the number of rescues, that we have had 23 persons and 11 vehicles reported so far. We have been able to locate and verify the safety of 8 of those persons, and we continue to work through that and will do so as the day goes on. I'll pass to Assistant Commissioner Smith now for an update around rescues. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Good morning, everyone. It's been an incredibly busy time for fire and emergency service crews through the evening and continues today. We've had fire and rescue service and state emergency services crews working across the North Coast region and the impacted areas. There's been 31 swiftwater rescues in the last 24 hours, and they were spread throughout that major impact area and a range from people being swept away, vehicles being swept away. In addition to that, there's been 38 requests for assistance to our state emergency service across the North Coast region. And again, as indicated by the State Disaster Coordinator, this is a very fluid event. Incidents are still being responded to. Out of those 31 swiftwater incidents, 18 remain open. We're having difficulty with access both on land and in air. So we do urge community support in minimising to essential travel only. If you're travelling through the area, please avoid that. If you're a local, in some of those areas you are experiencing weather that you have not experienced in your lifetime. So we do urge caution. If you can stay at home and you're safe, stay at home. If you do have life-threatening emergency, please call 000. If you require other assistance, 1325 500 for our state emergency service. And can I just reiterate the dangerous nature of the water environment, the floodwater environment. If it is flooded, please forget it. Turn back, find alternates, stay home. It is not worth it. You put yourself at risk and you put emergency responders at risk. Thank you.
Any questions?
Can I clarify, does this mean 15 people are currently unaccounted for?
They're working to access these people, so we'll be updating you during the day. Yep. Yep.
Do you know when the first alert from the bomb went out?
You'll have to ask the Bureau that. Do you have that answer, Laura?
So in terms of our warnings, yesterday afternoon we were warning for rainfall, heavy rainfall within thunderstorms. And then as the situation progressed, we heightened our warnings overnight as we went through.
Is it a case of it wasn't expected to be as severe?
Yeah, so in terms of this event, incredibly rare. We very rarely see thunderstorms just staying in the location for such a long period of time. So while we were aware that we were expecting thunderstorm activity and we could see heavy rain associated with that, the magnitude of what we saw really escalated throughout the night. So the Bureau was monitoring all day yesterday, and as soon as we started seeing those heavier rainfall totals, we then escalated and continued to brief throughout the night to emergency services and local councils as well.
So what time was that?
Time was what, sorry?
What time did you escalate?
Oh, it was a really evolving situation, so I couldn't give you any exact details.
We've heard from people that they felt the bomb didn't issue enough warnings for their area, and that the Gympie and the Mary Valley regions were caught off guard by the rapidly rising waters.
So similarly to what I said earlier, it was a very difficult situation to forecast for in terms of having that amount of intensity with the system that just doesn't move, seeing that stationary type of rain. So while we were aware of some of the risks, the exact amount of rainfall was something that we had to monitor instead of forecast. So we gave the most amount of warning that we possibly could, but acknowledging that it was a situation that did escalate very quickly.
So what does that mean logistically for the people that were at home potentially sleeping? Did they get door knocks? I don't know if this is a question.
Probably for the council or emergency services.
Sorry,
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
what did that mean for people at home potentially sleeping at night? Did they get door knocks? Did they get warnings? What actually was the response from emergency services once it had been
So we have been door knocking in those areas where we see really severe impacts. So that's using SES and I think maybe some QFers. Yes. So that's been happening this morning, and we'll continue to do that. But in terms of what's happened overnight, I think all of us, this has unfolded very, very rapidly. So it's only since early this morning that we've been trying to work through what's actually occurring. And because of the nature of this event, it's very hard to get situational awareness of what's actually happening on the ground. So as you've heard from the Assistant Commissioner from QFers, there are some areas that we still can't access because of road conditions, and also there's limitations on the air assets that are operating as well. So, and there was a period there where we couldn't even get any air assets up. We had to wait for the weather to get better. They are operating now. So we are, as I said before, currently in response. We don't have all the answers yet. We don't have all the information. Our priority at the moment is to identify all of those people that can't be accounted for, who have reported that they needed assistance, and make sure that we can verify that they're safe. So it's about community safety.
Sorry, what areas are they in?
Look, it's spread across the whole area. So we've got rescues happening right across the whole area there. And some of these are very small areas and quite remote, so it's going to take some time to work through it.
Give us some details about the Beluga Falls, the rescue.
Yeah, that's just a very quick brief. We got that as we were going in to brief the Premier, so we'll get them some more details. The thing that we're very happy about is that they're well, so we'll work through the details of that later. Thank you.
Any idea if it's from water though, or we heard that?
Yeah, it was a rescue, so they were people that were isolated in water that we had to rescue. I can't give you any more detail on that at the moment. Thank you.
Is this system expected to move south and affect us further down here in the southeast?
So in terms of the outlook, the system is expected to continue to move inland. So it has a sort of northish westerly track, but it is weakening. So it will start to have less impact and much less rainfall associated with it as we go on into this evening and certainly into tomorrow. However, the forecast for today is that we could still see a little bit more rainfall, especially in the next sort of 3 to 6 hours.
In the phone hookup you just had with the mayors, were they able to give something about the commission of the state result? Were they able to give any figures with the levels that are predicted tomorrow morning, just how many houses or properties particularly under?
No, they're working on that at the moment, so they'll project now at that 9 metre peak, but of course watching what's happening further upstream in the catchments. But as the Bureau said too, with this severe weather event, no one was expecting it to sit and stay and produce thunderstorms that were not moving. So this was an unexpected event from the Bureau's point of view, and they were sending out information as it came to hand, and also to alerting the mayors and the local councils as well.
Would Paradise Dam, had it been operating at full capacity, would it have made any difference?
No, I don't think so. So at the moment it's almost 100% full. It'll start spilling, which is what it's meant to do. So there's no impact for the community. Yeah. Anything else?
Just one more for the
Yes. Oh, and I might just update too, just in relation to the COVID update. So the Health Minister and the Chief Health Officer will be updating the public about that in the very near future. They'll also be giving an update about elective surgeries. But before we forget, before we move off weather, we should also advise that there is likelihood of a tropical cyclone that is also forming up the northwest Coral Sea. So that potential is a 50% chance of becoming a cyclone. We will track towards the eastern parts of Cape York Peninsula during Monday or Tuesday. We'll be keeping the communities updated, but the impacts would initially be on Cooktown and Lockhart River. So we'll be in contact with those communities for preparation if that does form into a cyclone. Thanks.
Transport and Main Roads have just tweeted that the Bruce Highway is in fact closed north of Indy. Do you have any info on that? I thought we were just talking about
No, as I said before, it's likely to keep changing during the day as we see more water fall. Bearing in mind, as Laura has said, there's a lot of water in these catchments already, and if we see more intense falls, which we will see during the day, we're likely to see things open and close. So hence that advice for people to check before they go anywhere.
Just a quick question on staffing. How many extra police, how many extra QFers, SES?
Oh, look, I don't have the exact numbers around that. We deal with this all the time, and Steve might be able to talk about pre-deployments. Once QFIS are very good, once they know that there's likely to be a weather event involving water, they'll pre-deploy swiftwater rescue assets, as they always do. We are operating within our current disaster management arrangements in those areas, and we have substantial resources on the ground, so I'm quite comfortable we've got plenty. Thank you.
Can I ask about swiftwater rescue teams? I know that you've had 3 deployments already in Disney with more on the way. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. So there was a significant number of local crews engaged and specialist crews deployed into the area, pre-deployed. More resources have been sent into the area, and that will continue through today, both from Brisbane and available from Central Region coming from the north. So we've got plenty of resources in place. It's just working through access issues at the moment.
Can you describe the concerns that you have for those people who are missing right now? Do you think it's more just that you can't get to them?
Look, each of those will need to be based on when we can get access. So at this stage, we've got a call or a request for assistance. We're responding to it, and we'll gather that information as it comes to hand and share when we can. Thank you.
Sorry for that. And unrelated question, just regarding roadside phone and speed cameras.
Yes.
They look like they will be used significantly this year to help with road safety. Do you have a message for motorists on that?
Yeah, look, please obey the road rules. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt, and do not use your mobile phone whilst you are driving. There are fines associated with that, and we need everyone to be safe. And also to listen to the messages about if the roads are closed. Please don't go if they are closed. And also to very clearly, if it's flooded, forget it. Please do not go through waters that are flooded, because it could have disastrous consequences to you or your family. Okay.
Some locals are saying that this feels a bit like a reactionary response rather than a proactive one. I mean, they appreciate, and everyone appreciates all the obviously changes, but do you feel that more could have been done ahead of time?
I don't think the Bureau expected this. As you heard from Laura, and the advice that we were getting as well, is they were not expecting this amount of rainfall to happen in such a short period of time. So these things are beyond the Bureau's control. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.